Welcome to the second part of the lecture, How to Keep Healthy in a Pandemic. My name is Alicja Baczynska. After exercise and nutrition, the next important aspect of our life to consider is how we deal with the multitude of various stresses and challenges that are part and parcel of our daily lives. I would like to introduce you to mindfulness as a way of being, a skill which can be learned without too much hassle. It can be useful to you now, while we are slowly recovering from the effects of the pandemic, but if you persist with the practice, it may prove to be the gateway towards a more wholesome, aware, and alive state of being. I have to admit here that I don't really like the phrase stress management. First of all, it implies that stress is an intrinsic part of our lives and we need to manage it like our finances, work, house chores, or family commitments. Secondly, it suggests that if you cannot manage the stress, there might be something wrong with you, but not necessarily anything wrong with your environment. Here we have such a typical example of a stressed out employee who looks like he might need 2 weeks at a spa hotel, yet is ironically advised to take up an unhealthy habit instead. And that's of course what people often do. In reality, he would be offered a psychiatric assessment and would probably be started on some anxiolytic or antidepressant medication to be able to continue his frantic race on a perpetual hamster wheel. So instead of the awkward phrase, which is almost as inadequate as the term resilience in medicine, I will use mindfulness, remembering, however, that it is also far from perfect and maybe the word heartfulness would be a much more appropriate term. This is yet another example of the inadequacy of language to describe the truth of human experience. Poetry and art in general will always do a much better job. What I'm trying to avoid is for you to take on stress management techniques as another tick box on your long to-do list. Why? Because it is not going to work and may instead add even more to the stress you already experience. It is not about doing, but being, and you can't put being on a to-do list. So in this lecture, I'm going to explore the concept of stress, how it relates to our immunity, and where it comes from. Next, I will introduce mindfulness and talk about simple meditative techniques you can gradually incorporate into your busy life and transform it completely by doing so. Stress in its present usage was coined by Hans Selye, who is known as the father of stress research. He described this as a non-specific response of the body to any demand. He conceived of stress as a biological process, a wide-ranging set of events in the body, irrespective of cause or subjective awareness. It occurs when the organism perceives a threat to its existence or well-being. Selye discovered that the biology of stress predominantly affected the endocrine, the immune, and the gastrointestinal systems. He found that rats subjected to stress had enlarged adrenal glands, atrophy of the lymphatic system, and ulceration of the stomach and duodenum. Selye was the first scientist to identify stress as underpinning the non-specific signs and symptoms of illness such as fatigue, apathy, sleepiness, general malaise. The experience of stress has three components. The first is the physical or emotional event that is interpreted as threatening. This is so-called stressor. The second element is the processing system that experiences and interprets the meaning of the stressor. In the case of humans, it is our nervous system. The third element is the stress response, which consists of the various physiological and behavioral adjustments. Selye said that for man, The most important stressors are emotional. The research has identified 3 factors that are universally lead to stress, and these are uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control. These are often present in the lives of individuals with chronic illnesses. And I think you will agree with me that the current high levels of stress and anxiety worldwide were caused by the fact that the world as we know it had come to a standstill. The connection between chronic psychological stress and depressed immunity is well established. The field of study which explores the interactions between the central nervous system and the immune system is called psychoneuroimmunology, or sometimes psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology. Acute short-lived stress generally boosts our immune function. In contrast, chronic stress through the action of cortisol and adrenaline results in decreased natural killer cells activity, lymphocyte populations and proliferation, as well as reduced antibody production and reactivation of latent viral infections. Of course, stress has got an immense influence on our health in general. In fact, 70% of GP consultations are related to psychosocial stress. I have certainly noticed this in my clinical practice. For example, in syncope clinics and TIA clinics, many of the patients I've seen describe physical symptoms which occur during a time of significant stress. Of course, you will not find out about this if you don't ask, and the short consultations certainly do not allow to take an in-depth lifestyle history and address any identified root causes of the illness. Stress is not something we can completely eliminate from modern life, but by making some subtle changes to the way we deal with it, we can learn to handle it more effectively. Instead of reacting to stressful events automatically and unconsciously, we can learn to respond more consciously by creating a little bit of space between the emotions precipitated by a stressor and ourselves. This is why mindfulness is so useful. It helps you to create the space which is in fact awareness itself. You become the watcher or the observer of the situation and of your body's response to it. Of course, in the first place, we need to be able to identify that we are experiencing stress. In the Western world, we often keep going with our stressful jobs or relationships without the awareness of how much harm we are doing to our bodies and minds. We are the experts in the unconscious hiding or suppressing what negative emotions because of social conditioning or as a protective mechanism usually learned in childhood. Our emotional cup fills up with anger, grief, fear, hurt, and so on, until it starts overflowing and presenting itself as objective physical symptoms like fatigue, sleep appetite problems, low mood, irritability, or poor concentration. When suppressing negative feelings, we also suppress our ability to experience positive emotions like joy, peace, and fulfillment. From here, the escape into various addictions is only a step away. It is a pity that in modern medicine we have separated the body from the mind despite the overwhelming evidence of total connection and the fact that it is impossible to heal from chronic diseases without considering and addressing the impact of stress in our patients' lives. Different causes of stress can be identified by considering the acronym COPS. This is taken from a chronic pain website called SERPA. Childhood stress. Many studies are now demonstrating that adverse childhood experiences are highly linked to health problems in later life. Current stress, like for example related to work, financial, relationship pressures. Overstimulation. We live in a world that can be very overstimulating for the senses. the screens and social media, multitasking, and the use of stimulants such as caffeine or sugars in your diet. All of these can cause a sensitization of the nervous system. Personality type. It looks like doctors are in particular prone to have a personality at risk of imposing too much stress on themselves. We are often overachievers and perfectionists. Taking care of patients can be emotionally draining, so we need to be particularly careful about replenishing our energy stores outside work. Self-induced or society-induced pressures. Do you push yourself, always expect the high standards, are over-analytical, or are you over-critical of yourself and others? Actually, these traits we learn from our parents and the society, which is full of rules and norms to follow. And because people judge us, we also learn to judge, and we often judge ourselves most harshly. We inflict lots of unnecessary suffering on ourselves and others by constantly judging, comparing, and labeling every single thing that happens. That's how our ego functions, this little unrelenting voice in our head. The role of mindfulness is to help us to dissolve this constant chatter into the emptiness and acceptance of pure awareness. One of the most basic philosophical errors underlying our culture is Descartes' "I think, therefore I am" statement. We equate thinking with being and identity with thinking. Identification with mind causes the thought to become compulsive and is the greatest obstacle to experiencing reality. However, this state of what one of the modern Indian gurus, Sadhguru, calls mental diarrhea is so prevalent that it is accepted as normal. This incessant mental noise prevents us from finding the realm of inner stillness and creates a state of total separateness from others and the world. We replay the same programs constantly in our head. We run on autopilot from the moment we wake up until we fall asleep. We are so invested in our rumination about past and worrying about our future that we completely miss that which is most precious in our lives, and in fact the only thing we will ever have, the present moment. Running on autopilot is the opposite of paying attention and mindfulness, and it saps our daily life of beauty and joy. Compulsive thinking is also connected with the typical doing mode of our existence. One of the things that confused me when I first started work in the UK years ago was people always asking me about plans for the weekend. There is an expectation that you should be doing something even if in your free time, as if relaxing and simply spending time with family was not enough of an achievement. At one point in my life, I have been totally absorbed by the demands of my working and family life, so busy and under pressure and so focused on ticking all the boxes of being a good doctor, mother and wife, that I unintentionally cut out all the things that kept me alive one by one, such as music, reading books, my spirituality, contact with nature and being alone with myself. The suffering I have caused by ignoring my inner garden was immense, and it took me a lot of time to understand what I have actually done and to find healing and a way back to my true self. I am sure many of you are perfectionists. It's a common trait among doctors. My perfectly planned life has at one point fallen apart, and I had to deal with it. I have grown so identified with my role as a doctor that I could not imagine myself being anything else, as anything else would be always, to me, the less ambitious choice, a failure. Now, looking back at all these tribulations, I understand why it happened, and I see the bigger picture of how my enforced withdrawal from the perpetual hamster wheel has led me to where I am now. Being vulnerable is part of our humanity. and doctors are certainly not invincible, yet we are so bad at talking about this. The pandemic has revealed our common vulnerability. It has somehow connected us at a profound level, and I only hope that we will use this time for deeper self-reflection and transformation. One of the biggest lessons I had to learn was to let go of my identity and embrace uncertainty. I grieved, and then I have overcome the grief by opening myself to new opportunities. Sometimes we are so invested into our plans that we do not notice anything beyond. We then become inflexible and slow to embrace change. We become too attached to our only way and only truth. And somehow life passes us by. But there is another way of living, and it is called being in the moment, or mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Professor Mark Williams, former director of the Oxford Mindfulness Centre, says that mindfulness means knowing directly what is going on inside and outside ourselves moment by moment. An important part of mindfulness is reconnecting with our bodies and the sensations they experience. This means waking up to the sights, sounds, smells, and tastes of the present moment. Another important part of mindfulness is an awareness of our thoughts and feelings as they happen moment to moment. By becoming more aware of the present moment, we can enjoy the world around us more and understand ourselves better. When we become more aware of the present moment, we begin to experience afresh things that we have been taking for granted. Mindfulness originates from Buddhist tradition and is based on Zen and Tibetan meditation practices. It was adopted widely in our Western culture to help with stress reduction. One of the USA pioneers was Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who removed the religious framework, instead adapting mindfulness in the scientific context. In the 1970s, he introduced mindfulness-based stress reduction into medical settings to help patients cope with stress, pain, anxiety, and illness by using what is called moment-to-moment awareness. Interestingly, the Chinese government has actually recommended mindfulness to the nation during this pandemic as a means to dealing with the anxiety. And it looks like the UK Parliament has already embraced this idea 5 years ago. So here is the link to the Mindful Nation report created by the All-Party Parliamentary Group in 2015, which recommends introducing mindfulness-based interventions in the healthcare, education, workplace and criminal justice settings. So you can have a look if you want to. I will just quote to you a little summary of what the authors of the Mindful Nation report have to say. We have been impressed by the quality and range of evidence for the benefits of mindfulness and believe it has the potential to help many people to better health and flourishing on a number of issues ranging from improving mental health and boosting productivity and creativity in the economy through to helping people with long-term conditions such as diabetes and obesity. Mindfulness appears to have an impact. This is a reason for government to take notice, and we urge serious consideration of our report. One of the things that I had to learn the hard way was listening to my body. We inhabit these highly sophisticated, unique pieces of super intelligent technology, yet we take them completely and utterly for granted. If you had been given a very expensive and amazing car, and you were told that this is the only car you will ever have, how would you treat it? I suspect that you would be treating it with great reverence and carefulness. You would perhaps buy the better petrol, service it regularly, and drive with care. You would listen to the engine and react to any slightest changes or noises that may signify that something is wrong. Similarly, we are given our amazing, irreplaceable body to inhabit, an utterly fantastic, most refined piece of technology on this planet that is supposed to serve us well into old age. And what do we do with it? Do we feed it the best and healthiest food? Do we challenge it appropriately with exercise to keep it fit and supple? Do we allow it to move naturally in the fresh air as often as possible? Do we allow it to relax? Do we listen to every little sign of discontent or discomfort? The way we treat our bodies is established in our childhood. Think how we unintentionally teach the children to ignore their body signals. For example, if they say they are not hungry anymore, we still convince them to have a few more spoonfuls of dinner. If they are not able to sit quietly for a prolonged period of time at school, we punish them. If they want to rest and be alone, we enroll them into after-school activities. It gets even worse when we reach adulthood. If we suffer from indigestion, we take a pill and continue gorging on fast food at night. If we have a headache, we take a pill and continue work on the computer. If we have constipation, we take a laxative. If we feel a bit low, we take a happy pill and carry on. If our cholesterol or blood pressure is raised, we take some pills and say it runs in the family. The never-ending lists of comorbidities and pills that our patients present with are the best evidence of how pharmaceutics and procedures have disempowered people from looking after themselves in the name of modern medicine. We have given away our society's physical and mental health to pharmaceutical companies, and it's becoming glaringly obvious that we have lost something crucial in the process. It is certainly not a pathway to holistic healing. So how can we introduce more mindfulness into our daily lives? These are some examples of simple practices which are recommended when we feel anxious or overwhelmed, but when practiced regularly, they have a calming and relaxing effect on the mind and body. The first one is simply slow breathing. Sit somewhere quiet and just close your eyes. Breathe in slowly for 5 seconds and then slowly out for 5 seconds. This amounts to about 6 breaths per minute and is supposed to be the rhythm through which we can intentionally increase the tone of the vagus nerve and activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest state of relaxation, as opposed to the sympathetic fight or flight state of stress. You may remember from the previous lecture about the connection of the gut and immune system through the vagus nerve to the brain. The vagus nerve is also the body-mind connector, and its healthy activity is revealed in the heart rate variability. You can experience this by feeling your pulse and noticing how it goes up when you inhale and goes down when you exhale. This is how I also do my evening meditation, simply listening to relaxing Tibetan music and breathing slowly. It has a wonderful relaxation effect. Another simple meditation is body scan. You can find these on YouTube or meditation apps. If you need a quick recharge during the working day, then while having your lunch or a snack in a quiet place, you can focus your attention on the flavors and the texture of the food, and by doing so, take your mind off the whirlpool of thoughts, immersing yourself in the sensations of your body, which has a really good grounding effect. The RAIN acronym is a practice of radical self-compassion. I came across this when listening to Tara Bragg, who is one of the best-known mindfulness teachers in the USA, and I really love her talks on YouTube. I am not going to talk about this, as the whole point is to actually practice this as a meditation. So if you have time now and feel like it, I would encourage you to stop the lecture now and listen to Tara's 20-minute rain meditation, which is accessible from the link. Or maybe save it on your phone and make a plan to listen to it later. I cannot emphasize enough the huge benefits of connecting with nature. Forest baths are practiced in Japan as a way of distressing, and they are becoming popular in the West. 2-hour forest walk will calm your mind and recharge you for the whole week. It is thought that the essential oils and fragrances from the trees have a calming effect. Put your hands in the soil. This will also enrich your gut microbiome. Contemplating any part of nature, be it birds, trees, or flowers, or the sky, is also a very good way to relax. Let's look at some mind-blowing science, which is another great example of how modern science is discovering truths which ancient traditions have known for thousands of years. It will hopefully encourage you even more to connect with our Mother Earth. So, the surface of planet Earth, as is well known, is affected electrically by countless lightning strikes, solar radiation, and other atmospheric dynamics. Not so well known, however, is that these phenomena endow our land masses and bodies of water with a continuously renewed supply of free electrons that give the Earth a natural negative electric charge. Earthing, also known as grounding, refers to the discovery that bodily contact with the Earth's natural electric charge stabilizes the physiology at the deepest levels, reduces inflammation, pain, and stress, improves blood flow, energy, and sleep, and generates greater well-being. Such effects are profound, systemic, and foundational, and often develop rapidly. Our body produces huge amounts of free radicals, and the stream of electrons from the Earth acts as powerful antioxidant. Earthing is as simple as routinely walking barefoot outdoors and or using inexpensive grounding systems indoors while sleeping or sitting. Practices that restore a lost and needed electric connection with the Earth. There are quite a few studies now about earthing, and I will just mention to you one, which is an amazing grounding study of neonates. Low vagal tone is a marker of vulnerability to stress and increases the risk of developing a very dangerous condition, necrotizing enterocolitis, in preterm infants. Electric fields produced by equipment in the neonatal intensive care unit induce an electric potential measurable on the skin of the infants in reference to the ground. Vagal tone is a measure of resilience and homeostasis in infants, and it increases when the incubator is switched off. In the study of 26 preterm babies, they were grounded via a patch electrode and a grounding wire for about 20 to 40 minutes. So what happened was that the skin voltage dropped by about 95% and the vagal tone increased by 67%. So the conclusion of the authors was that the electrical environment affects autonomic balance, and electrical grounding improves vagal tone and may improve resilience to stress and lower the risk of neonatal morbidity in preterm infants. Apart from stabilizing of the internal bioelectrical environment in the body, connecting with the earth also resets our biological clocks, hence regulating sleep-wake patterns, digestion, and hormonal secretion. Throughout history, humans mostly walked barefoot or with footwear made of animal skins. They slept on the ground or on skins through direct contact of or through perspiration moistened animal skins used as footwear or sleeping mats. The ground's abundant free electrons were able to enter the body, which is electrically conducive. Modern lifestyle has increasingly separated humans from the primordial flow of Earth's electrons. For example, since the 1960s, we have increasingly worn insulating rubber or plastic-soled shoes instead of the traditional leather fashioned from hides. Ideally, we should spend 30 minutes per day connecting with the earth, but even a short contact will be enough to neutralize your body's potential, as it happens immediately after grounding. So if you don't want to take off your shoes, I believe that touching the grass, soil or a tree with your hands can have similar effect. Here are some tips on how to start off your adventure with mindfulness. Candle gazing is a beautiful meditation. Try it out in the evening to create a calming atmosphere before bedtime. If you find it hard to sit down for meditation or your mind becomes too agitated, you could try movement practices first. For example, yoga postures will slow down your breathing and through movement of your body also calm your mind if you practice regularly. The Qigong is a series of repeated movements which are designed to cultivate the Qi, the life energy, and unblock any energy blockages in your body. But most of all, be attentive to the life around you. Observe the changing seasons, the emotions on people's faces, their vulnerability, the sound of their voice and the color of their eyes. Hear the morning symphony of birds on your way to work and feel the cold breeze on your face. Mindfulness is not difficult. You just have to remember. If you still wonder what being versus doing looks like, I encourage you to observe young children. They are totally engaged in the present moment and have this wonderful sense of wonder. It's the openness to the mystery and the beauty which makes life worth living. It is so easy to take things for granted all the time. Practice of gratefulness is a very satisfying, heartwarming meditation. Just close your eyes for a minute and remind yourself of a few things that make your heart grow. Feel enveloped by the love and kindness that you encountered today. I am sure you'll agree that this crisis has revealed how much we can be thankful for. Never has the love for the NHS been sung, clapped and painted so openly by all members of our society, and we should cherish this shower of appreciation for us and other key workers every day. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance, says Eckhart Tolle. As always, big changes happen usually through a series of small steps. Set yourself mini goals which you know you can achieve without too much effort. For example, 5 minutes of guided meditation twice a day. I highly recommend starting and finishing your day in a mindful way. After practicing this for a few days, you will notice a difference in the quality of your day as well as sleep. The brain goes into theta waves few minutes before we fall asleep, which is basically a state of hypnosis. So if you allow yourself to ruminate or think negative thoughts in the bed, your brain will be processing this all night. In contrast, if you choose to do a short meditation or gratitude practice, or maybe just listen to relaxing music, you will prepare your body for a restorative, cleansing night's sleep. In the morning, before starting our autopilot preparation for work, try doing a few mindful stretches and become aware of your sleepy body and breathing for a couple of minutes before getting up. You will see it will make a huge difference. You can use an app for meditations. I really like Insight Timer or you can just sit quietly with your eyes closed, not trying to do anything at all. Just observe what happens. Don't judge yourself on the basis of your uncontrolled thinking. It is normal for the mind to keep producing different thoughts, but you will soon learn to watch them like the clouds in the sky, without wanting to change them or stop them, letting go of the need to control, accepting and nurturing any emotions which arise as a result of the thoughts. Be gentle with yourself, as you would be with a little child or a pet. As doctors, we encounter lots of wounded people in need of healing, but somehow we only focus on the physical part of the illness. True healing can only happen through a holistic approach. By learning to use mindfulness in your own daily life, you will become proficient and confident to guide your patients towards body, mind, spirit health. You will deepen your empathy and understanding of the whole human being, rather than exclusively focusing on the limited physical aspect of disease. You will become not only a better doctor, you will become a healer. These are just a few books and resources which can get you started on the lifelong journey of self-discovery. Thank you for spending this time with me and listening to this lecture. To finish, I'm just going to give you a taste of the poetry pharmacy, which I find is an excellent book of poems to enjoy. It's a poem, Everything is Going to Be Alright, by Derek Mahon. How should I not be glad to contemplate the clouds clearing beyond the dormer window, and the high tide reflected on the ceiling? There will be dying, there will be dying, but there is no need to go into that. The poems flow from the hand unbidden, and the hidden source is the watchful heart. The sun rises in spite of everything, and the far cities are beautiful and bright. I lie here in a riot of sunlight, watching the day break and the clouds flying. Everything is going to be alright.